Hi everyone, welcome to our weekly Q&A session, and it's my pleasure to welcome here our coach Daniel. So Daniel, how are you today? It's really nice to see you.
Yep. It's nice to see you as well. Nice to be back, and yeah, all is well on my end.
Yeah, perfect. So yes, this is great. Actually, I would like to share that it was this week or last week your film or movie The Doctor Sleep has been released, at least the teaser. So what are your first thoughts and first emotions, if you can share about this?
Oh
Or
yeah,
can you,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I want to say firstly that it was so great. A lot of people saw it, and I saw there was so many thumbs up and so many comments, so much support. So like, thanks everyone for that. That meant a lot. It was so nice to see that. Watching it for the first time, I like many people who see it will probably find that it was really like Jim. I think was kind of like when you see how he reacted to kind of learning more about sleep, and he was kind of tearing up, almost crying, and
Yeah.
you felt that hope. Like that was such a strong, like that was so touching to me. That was so powerful and so nice. Now, just a lot of people have asked me like, so is it going to be more? Is there a second part? What's going on? Well, actually, the like Doctor Sleep, the one like the 8-9 minute mini documentary that is now on our YouTube channel, that is actually just a small part of
Mhm.
many videos where I've interacted with Jim, and we're creating like a maybe 45-50 minute long um, pilot episode of what we hope to be a docuseries, where we get to follow Jim from the first time I meet him, and then kind of coaching him and how things change and things like that. And we're hoping that Netflix or Amazon or something will
Mhm.
pick it up and produce it into like a whole series of episodes like that. So that's a little backstory, but yeah, that
Yeah,
that's
perfect.
that's how I
I
felt about it.
really liked it, and fingers crossed. So you can share and spread the message about effortlessness of the sleep. So yeah, okay. I think we can start because the comments are coming in, and right. We have here Happy Chahar. Hi, I'm having racing horrible thoughts. Tried everything but can't accept them. Please tell me something to get peace of mind and how to just be effortless. You guys have really helped me a lot in life. Our pleasure. I would be forever grateful to you. I urge you to please help me in the problem mentioned. So, what are your thoughts, Daniel?
Yeah, firstly, I want to say that I'm really glad to hear that Happy Chahar has found us and found what we teach here helpful. That's wonderful. And I'm also glad to see this like insight that Happy Chahar understands that like peace of mind really comes from effortlessness, from not chasing it, trying to achieve it, try to force it. It's something that happens by itself. And with that in mind, there's it's paradoxical, because also Char says, I've tried everything to accept. And so we see like the understanding at effortless is what we want, but then there's still trying going on,
Mm-hmm.
like they're still like trying to accept, trying to get peaceful, trying, and the trying, of course, is another way of saying effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how can we approach this? Well, I think maybe the most helpful teaching here is around understanding what we mean when we say acceptance, or when we say let it be or let it go, or when we say talk about befriending. The thing is that when you hear somebody says like, maybe accept, go towards acceptance, it can sound to us as like, oh, there's something there I need to do. But in fact, acceptance is a non-doing. It's the absence of doing anything in particular. And one thing that can illustrate this is the following: that to accept something, you have to first have not accepted it. Like, so not accepting is something we do, right? It involves like fighting against, struggling. That's not accepting. So accepting is just not accepting. It's like accepting
Mm-hmm.
is non-doing. It's like to
Mm-hmm.
befriend something, you have to first have had a fight with it. Otherwise, there's nothing to befriend. Or a final thought on this. Is the example of my kids. Sometimes they get into like a tussle, like my two kids, they're 10 and 12. So they start screaming at each other. And then sometimes I'm like, just stop fighting. And it can sound like stop fighting means like, oh, they need to do, I'm commanding them to do something. But what am I saying? Stop fighting just means not doing what you're doing currently. So it's stop fighting sounds like a command, but it's actually an invitation to non-doing, something like that. So I think for Happy Chahar, when Happy Chahar sees fully that like trying to accept is also like an effort, and these things sink in, then things will get easier. Something like that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Maybe just one thought I would add, that acceptance is not an absence of difficult emotions. So, because sometimes people feel like, okay, if I accept in the right way, I'm not gonna feel this, or I'm not gonna experience this. And this is really the quite opposite of the acceptance. This is the trying and effort. So I hope we have answered the question, and we have a question from Angela. So hi Angela. Last night I really tried accepting wakefulness, but I still couldn't fall asleep. I'm so discouraged. So basically, this is the same, right? Um, when we try hard to accept, and at the end of it, it's we still expect the result of sleep. This is just a masked effort. So uh, turning uh, turning the coin, and instead of fighting it, and rather befriending it, like uh, being okay with being awake at night, and trying to experience the nighttime wakefulness in a different way, in a less frazzling, in a less intimidating way. Um, this could help a lot, because with insomnia we have so many bad memories of us fighting in the middle of the night, of us struggling. But when we start to change the memories, when we start to do things that we like, despite we are feeling scared, then the whole experience changes. So I hope this helps, and I think we can move to another question. And hello, coaches. Hi, A series. Hope you are doing fine. In the last Q&A, I asked a question to Veronika about hyperarousal and its symptoms in pregnancy. I have concern for my baby's safety. Veronika's answer was mm, reconforting, but after a few days, my brain resent me the same thoughts. What if your conditioned stress response will affect your baby? These symptoms are conditioned in my brain because of my past insomnia experience. So basically, uh, you cannot fight with your brain. What it's trying to tell you. It's like like you said. I really like the analogy with trying to fight with someone who has a different political opinion. When you are trying to persuade the person, you are not going to win over this person, right? But when you just allow this talk of your brain, like, what if it has what if there might be a problem, what if you just listen to your brain. Hey brain, it's okay, I hear what you are trying to tell me, but in the end you cannot really control the result. You I know that it doesn't sound reassuring, but you have no control over this, what is going to happen. But from my own experience, and also experience of other moms that have been through insomnia, there are many that experience no that their insomnia didn't influence their babies. Their babies are thriving, they are happy, healthy, and this is something you can see as your North Star. Hey, brain, this is my baby, this is my happy baby, my healthy baby, and I leave it up to you how you will get to this result. So I hope this helps. Do you have any thoughts on this, Daniel? I think to
Yeah,
add?
yeah, it's fun when you mentioned kind of the North Star in the context of like a baby. Like it just reminded me of Lily Seiss, who was a guest here on the
Mhm.
channel, and who I spoke to a little bit, and she mentions often how like the human body, like the female human body, like can produce a baby in a wonderful way. Like we have absolutely no idea how that happens, but yet it happens all the time. And
Yeah,
same thing with sleep, of course. We don't know exactly how sleep happens, but yet we
yeah.
all, like our
Mhm.
bodies have the wisdom of producing sleep, which is just a little thought that came to mind. But um, the other thing was how A series here said, she'd been worried about being pregnant and insomnia, and then you had said something in the live Q&A that was kind of comforting, and he says, "But now the thoughts are back. Now this
Mhm.
is back." And the tricky thing here, I think, can be that when you hear something that is comforting and you feel less anxious, that of course feels really nice. Feels good,
Yeah.
like feels peaceful. And then when you feel kind of stressed again, you think like, oh no, I need to hear that again. I need Veronika to tell me that it's okay again, so I feel
Mhm.
calm again. And what is can be tricky here is that reassurance or seeking reassurance can make it appear to us that feeling anxious or worried is something bad, something dangerous, something that is a
Mhm.
threat. So when we keep in mind that when we feel anxious, that doesn't mean we need to immediately seek a way to escape that. Like, oh, I need to talk to Veronika again so I feel calm, because that can become like, a way where we teach our brain that feeling anxious or having worry thoughts is a threat, and where we have more and more of them. So education I think is really great, and if we seek comfort just for as an act of self kindness, that's fine. But I think it's always helpful when you keep in mind uh, situations where we're sort of going towards a place where we automatically feel like, oh, if I feel anxious, I have to not feel anxious. Something like that can be really helpful, because that's kind of a tricky situation.
Mhm. So thank you. And we have a really nice comment from Gressa. You are the best, Daniel. You are the reason that I no longer suffer from insomnia. Wonderful.
So nice to hear that. Thank
And
you.
no
Thank you.
question. Amazing. Thank you for sharing. And here we have a question from M. I have relatives who realize the only way they get an acceptable amount of sleep, they go to sleep extremely early. Is that really acceptance or is this sleep effort? So, what do you think, Daniel?
Yeah, this is a very, very interesting question.
Mm-hmm,
Uh, because sometimes we talk about how you know people we know, family members, etc. They have kind of no relationship with sleep, like they're not scared of not sleeping, etc., and they sleep well. But sometimes it's also true that there are people that we know, friends, family members, etc., who have some type of relationship with sleep, but who also don't struggle with sleep. And this can be people who have, for example, a belief that, oh, I'm a person who I absolutely need to get 8 hours at minimum, or else I won't do well. And people can live their whole lives with that belief and with those behaviors, and not necessarily have any struggle with it. So in that situation, when there's no fear around it, it's not really a sleep effort, because it's not like they're uh, trying to avoid an emotion. They're not trying to escape fear. They're not so frazzled that they're like, oh, I absolutely have to get into bed early, or else this bad thing is going to happen. uh, but there is still often some beliefs that drive this, that aren't necessarily true. This person, a relative, who says the only way they can get an acceptable amount of sleep is to get to bed extremely early. um maybe not, like maybe they would find at some point that they went to bed late and they slept fine, and that there was actually sufficient amount of sleep. Who knows? But so I'd say that, to me, if there's no kind of struggle with sleep, then it isn't a sleep effort. But people can still have like ideas about sleep that aren't necessarily true. I would maybe say something like that.
yeah, absolutely. And maybe I don't know like how old are these people, but the older generation, they like to, we say, like, go to sleep with chickens, and they get up very early, but also they go to bed very early, and this is very natural for them because they usually have been something to be doing like basically most of their lives, and so this is their way to approach their night and day, and they're completely content with this. So it is fine for them. So great for them.
Yeah, exactly.
So, right. And there's a question for me. Hi, Jennifer. Hi Veronica, do you still count your hours of sleep? I'm doing better now than before, but I still feel the need to count hours and look at the time. Um, nope, I don't count the hours that I sleep, and I really go completely timeless. And but we can have a look like what does it say for you? Why are you counting hours and looking at the time? Maybe what is the urge behind this behavior? Why are you counting hours? Why are you looking at the clock? Is it some kind of fear? Is it a way you want to maintain the control over your sleep? And when you have a moment, you can quiet down and ask yourself, why am I looking at the clock? Do I need this kind of like a reassurance? Yes, I have slept, or I need this sense of control that after I realize I didn't kind of like sleep enough, I will do some I will take some measures that will help me to get more hours. So this is something that to think about. And if it comes in a way of thoughts, basically all you need to do is just to acknowledge this thought. Like, hey, I just get a thought about checking the clock. And when we show our brain that we are not so interested into the result of this thought of this act, like, okay, I slept maybe these so many hours, or it's this time and this time. When our brain sees like, Jennifer is not so interested into knowing how much she slept, then what feels so important for our brain, but with our attitudes, we our brain learns that it's not so important for us to know. It moves this information to the area of non-importance in our brains. So, because you know, the logic behind this is that our brain, there is this logical part of brain, and this our amygdala, our primitive part of brain, and this primitive part of brain, it learns by how we show up to our insomnia, how we behave, and when we behave like this is not important, only then it will understand this is not so important for us. So I hope it makes sense, Jennifer. Do you have anything to add, Daniel?
No, no, actually, I have very little to add. Uh, you know, which is very hard for me. So, but I'm going to be disciplined now and just I'm going to stick with it. No, I have nothing to add.
Okay, perfect. Okay, and actually, we have one more question, and this is from FIFA Chapo. Hey, hey guys, do you have a tip to better befriending wakefulness? I understand now more about accepting to be awake and be kinder to myself, but I don't really know what to do at 3 a.m. after I can't sleep. So basically, this comes back to what we talked about the acceptance, but how to be kinder to yourself. Can you share some words on this, Daniel?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's it. Really, I think that's probably the most helpful thing of everything we teach. And the way I look at this is not different from probably how you like if you Google search like how to be kind to myself. It's very similar, but I guess the confusion often becomes that people think like self kindness means some specific act, like, oh, self kindness is when I go to the spa or like I buy
Mhm.
my favorite ice cream, and those can be nice things, but self kindness isn't really about that. I think it's more about how we treat ourselves and talk to ourselves. So we can think of how our grandfather would talk to us when we were small. Like, would they ever be like harsh or hard on us? No, they would always be kind of nice and give us a hug and be kind to ourselves. And we can think of how we would talk to a friend if a friend said like, "Oh, I wake up," or if I haven't fallen asleep by 3 a.m., then I have a really rough time and I don't know what to do. Would our friend go like, "What's wrong with you? Just like sleep." Like, they would never say something like, they would always be like, it's okay, it'll be all right. Like, so talking to ourselves in that manner is like really, really helpful. Now, just to add a little bit, maybe on a little bit more kind of narrower note on this situation of like understanding that acceptance is the way, but when I haven't fallen asleep in many, many hours, it's harder for me to be okay with that. Well, firstly, that's of course very, very human and normal, right? It's much easier for someone who doesn't struggle with sleep to be okay with not sleeping one night than it is for somebody who's struggling with sleep. But that's very natural and normal. So it's a big ask in a way to say like, okay, yeah, I'm going to be okay with whatever happens. And so if you find yourself frustrated again, then you don't want to add to that by kind of criticizing yourself for feeling frustrated. Now the other thing is that a lot of times when we talk about befriending wakefulness, people think it has to be something engaging, something enjoyable, something fun, something active, but it doesn't have to be at all. Like the whole point is just kind of showing yourself and showing the brain that being awake is okay. It's not necessarily what we want, but it's okay. So just resting, is can be just as helpful. Just closing your eyes and resting, is just as helpful as watching a show or something like that. And then maybe final note here is that the 3 a.m. When somebody mentions an exact time, I'm always like, how do you know it's 3 a.m.? Not that it's like critical or crucial not to check the time, but it often helps not to know what time it is, just to make things a little fuzzy. So I'll pause there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, Danielle. And yeah, just I think we can answer one last question. And we have a question from Red Green. Does long-term use of Citrax disrupt sleep architecture, cause chronic fatigue and restful sleep? What do you think?
Okay, yeah, very interesting and great question, common question.
Mhm.
I would say this. Does long-term use of Z drugs disrupt sleep architecture? I would say that I don't know. I haven't studied that. But I also think it is actually not very relevant to the other questions of like chronic fatigue or unrestful sleep or sleep in general. And I say this for the following reason. When I worked as a sleep doctor, which I did for 10 years, one part of that is you look at sleep studies, where you have like
Mhm.
raw data from EEG, like neuron derived sleep architecture data. And you'd often have cases when somebody had like the most beautiful, perfect textbook sleep architecture, like long chunks of deep sleep in the beginning, then REM sleep, very, very consolidated sleep. And then you're like, so how was your night in the sleep lab? And they're like, absolutely terrible, worst night of my life. Like, oh. And then the opposite, typically like this elderly person who had like slept like a total of like 3.5 hours, super fragmented, choppy, no REM sleep, no deep sleep, like super stage 2 sleep. And you're like, how was your night sleep? Like, it's like, I slept great. I don't know what you do with the bed there. You're like, wow. So there is very little correlation between like sleep architecture and kind of our experience of sleep. And another example I want to use is that occasionally when you were reading sleep studies, you find a pretty, let's say, a young adult who has absolutely no REM sleep, which is kind of unusual.
Mhm.
And when at first we see that for the first time, you're like, what's going on here? But then we see the third time and fourth time and fifth time, you're like, you know exactly where to look. You look in the chart and it's like, is this person on an SSRI? Oh yeah, they're on SSRI. Very often SSRIs just make it so that you see no REM sleep at all.
Mhm.
And this person often sleeps just fine. Like they have no, there's no impact of that in their experience of sleep. So long story short here, I would say that sleep architecture has, in my opinion, my experience, and as far as I know, that in itself has little, if any, impact on like our experience of sleep, which is
Mhm.
what matters, right? Which then takes us nicely to fatigue and unrestful sleep. And I think there are millions and millions of people on the planet who have used Z drugs long term, who don't have a chronic fatigue or unrestful sleep, who have full of energy and sleep just fine. I think there's no evidence that Z drugs, long term Z drugs, cause chronic fatigue or cause unrestful sleep. Again, to me, chronic fatigue in my view is another struggle, just like insomnia. But with insomnia, kind of the main focus of fear is not sleeping, right?
Mm-hmm.
and that's a struggle. But with chronic fatigue, it's more fatigue. Like we all feel tired, we all feel exhausted at some point, but it doesn't become a struggle until our brain goes like, oh, fatigue is not good, fatigue is a threat, fatigue is dangerous, you need to stop this fatigue. And then it becomes this loop where the more we try to stop fatigue, the more our brain thinks fatigue is bad, the more it looks out for it, the more it finds it, the more tired we become, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, chronic fatigue is very similar to insomnia. It's about education and about like befriending the thing that we've been scared of. So befriending the fatigue, befriending the wakefulness that leads to resolution of insomnia and chronic fatigue. And unrestful sleep, very often, we have a whole playlist on this, by the way, for everyone out there, unrefreshing sleep. uh, Often we think that when we don't feel rested, it's simply because we didn't get enough sleep or we didn't get enough quality sleep. But the thing is that, you can have a time like you've experienced having small kids where you're like, you're up half the night, you're very fragmented, choppy sleep, and you're not rested during the day, but it doesn't really bother you because there's so many other things going on in your life. Your experience is very, very different, right? So I would say unrestful sleep often comes much more from how we think about the night and how we think about ourselves when we have a choppy night and we're like, oh no, I didn't sleep again, this means something's wrong with me, I'm never going to get better. And then we feel this heaviness, this sadness, like this kind of deep-seated fatigue, which is really an emotional fatigue. But when our thoughts change, when we realize that, yeah, I had a choppy night, but it doesn't mean anything, I can still have a wonderful life, I'm whole, I'm sound, there's nothing wrong with me, then we feel light again. So that's how I'd reply to this.
Yeah, this was a wonderful reply. Thank you so much for this great information, Daniel. And I'll just add that I have experience in insomnia for quite a few years, and in all this time, I was using some kind of medicine. Whether it was the drugs, whether it was anti-anxiety meds or sleeping pills, hypnotics, and so on. I have no idea what my sleep architecture is now, but I completely sleep well, and even despite my sleep is sometimes still choppy because my kids like to move to my bed in the middle of the night or they wake me up. I just feel completely fine the next day because I see there is there is simply no mystery around why I wouldn't sleep, why I would wake up in the middle of the night, and even if it takes to me sometimes to fall asleep longer than usually, I'm fine with it. I'm not anymore scared and afraid. Like, oh my goodness, what if I don't fall asleep tonight? Right? This is for a really, really long time. I haven't had these kind of thoughts, and this is wonderful. And thanks to you, Daniel. Yeah.
No, no, no. It's all thanks to you, really. I just maybe pointed you in a direction, but you did all the hard work of like learning and contextualizing. So definitely thank you.
Uh,
So
so anyway, thank you so much, Daniel, for being here today. And yeah, we can wrap up. And yeah, I will talk to you next time. Thank you so much.
thanks,
And
Veronica.
thanks to everyone for being here. Bye bye.